Hey, what's going on, everybody? So the Miami Hurricanes win convincing fashion, 97-49 over LIU. Has really struggled this year, and Miami took full control of the game from the beginning, 21-0 out of the gate. So Miami just came out really strong offensively, defensively, turned a lot of the turnovers into buckets in transition, points off turnovers, 17-3 advantage in fast break points. A few takeaways into this game. I don't want to dive too much into it because clearly this was just a game, an example of a team that was really overmatched their opponent, and Miami did so both ways. Rod Strickland, the LIU head coach, it was good seeing Rod again. I had actually seen him when he was at USF, and he's just had this long NBA career. Asked Coach Larinaga about him as well. He's a guy from New York. I thought maybe Larinaga would bring up the fact that he coached against him. His last game at Virginia as assistant coach was a loss to Rod Strickland and DePaul in the NCAA tournament. But anyways, let's talk about this game. So all five starters certainly contributed in this one, especially early on. Norchad Omier led the way, 17 points, 13 rebounds, another double-double from him, another dominating performance. He had a double-double by halftime, actually, so that was certainly good to see. Another guy I want to speak about just for a little bit here is Wooga Poplar. You know, before the game started, I got here early, watched some pregame shooting that he was going through, and he actually right behind me, if you could see, you know, sometimes he takes these kind of odd shots, some shots, you know, some warm-up stuff that he likes to do. So today he was shooting from the corner three spot, but out of bounds, knocking those down. And then with Dewan Hernandez, you know, he's on the staff right now, and Jack McClinton, who was in the building as well, they were sitting right there. And he actually went behind the bench to shoot a baseline three and drilled that as well. So that, I bring that up because, you know, after the game, as you've been following these videos that I like to do after post-game, you know, wrapping things up. But Wooga was out here, you know, in his game uniform, putting up shots. Once again, we see him quite a bit do this. A lot of players I've listed a number of different guys that I've seen out here after games, going through some workouts, putting up more shots. And Wooga was one of those guys. Again, in his full uniform, out here putting up more shots, more three-pointers, put down some impressive dunks. So he's just a guy that continues to put in work, and he just, you know, the basic way that I could describe him is he just enjoys being around the game. He enjoys putting up shots. You know, there were other guys here too in terms of the staff members kind of just watching him, and he just enjoys kind of, you know, putting on a show and kind of doing his thing. And I think that's going to be something to watch for all season long. Wooga's certainly a guy to watch for. It's going to be interesting to see how things kind of continue with him throughout the season, but so far so good. A very efficient shooter, a guy that can shoot threes, also an athletic guy who can make some shots off the dribble. You see his pull-up stuff that we're seeing. He's just a lot of fun to watch, and it's also fun to watch pre and post game. So I'm enjoying kind of following his whole season, the way things have gone so far. Going back to Coach Strickland, he was highly complimentary, as every coach typically is when they face Miami. Just said that this team was really impressive offensively. He felt like his team was overmatched and also a little intimidated, so that's something to watch for. And I thought it was great that when Miami plays a team like this, that they really put this out of reach early on and really set the tone. And really, when you do that, when you build a big lead, and this is what we saw tonight, you allow your bench players to get in there a little bit more than normal. And the bench guys took advantage of their playing time tonight. They contributed 30 points off the bench. We have not seen that number yet this year. Kean George, a season-high freshman there, 13 points, a guy clearly I was very high on coming into the year. But it was good to see him kind of make some shots, you know, and Coach Larinaga actually mentioned that he called a timeout at one point just to really tell Kean to take the ball to the basket because he didn't do it on his own, and he felt like he had to call a play to let him know and call timeout to let him know to really, you know, take initiative. And he said this before throughout the season, just it's not necessarily in his nature because of where his background is, playing with much older players in Europe, that he tends to take a back seat. And one of the things that stood out to me with what Coach said in regards to that early on in the year was that Kean's a guy that does a really good job of playing with better players, with good players. And to me, that means he can kind of really fit in and be this complementary piece, but Coach really wants him to take initiative when he's out there. And I just think tonight was a good sign, but I think it's just going to be a process. And Coach mentioned it, look, and he keeps kind of mentioning this, that, look, they've got a good five. They feel like they have a good starting five, but really the success is going to depend on how good the bench players are. And he did say, too, that most bench players typically want more minutes to show everybody what they can do, but he wants them to just take advantage of essentially the time that they're given, be productive in those minutes, and maybe they'll earn more playing time as opposed to the other way around. But tonight, a lot of minutes were given out to the bench guys, so they did good. Michael Nwako had a nice dunk. Ja'Kai Robinson, we saw him make a nice pull-up jumper. We got to see the walk-ons too, so AJ Casey was in there, as well as Christian Watson making some shots. So good just overall for the bench to have some confidence. I think overall, these two games were good for Miami from a defensive standpoint, but clearly the level of competition from LIU and Notre Dame, who I expect to struggle in the ACC, have to be taken for what it is in terms of how good they are. But because Miami does have a very tough opponent in Colorado, they go up there on Sunday to New York and play a neutral site game against the Buffaloes, a team that I've already watched earlier this year that I'm going to dive into even more on the website, so definitely stay tuned to that the next few days leading up to the game on Sunday. So I'm going to keep this short. I wanted to point out a few things. Great to see guys contribute, play well. Great to see Wuga after the game as well. But let me know what you thought of this game. Definitely drop in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Hopefully have a good rest of the day, and take care.